What's up, guys? Wanna go to prison?
Hey,
What's up, CJ?
What's up?
What's up, man? Wanna go to prison?
What?
That's right, fellas, you better mind what you say about Assassin's Creed Shadows because Ubisoft is done playing around. According to a French media outlet who spoke to a Ubisoft employee who didn't identify his or herself, Ubisoft has a new anti-online harassment plan prepared for the game's launch. According to this employee, Ubisoft is working with a Canadian Power Ranger team to crack down on what they determined to be harassment. And reportedly, this team is on standby 24/7, 369, monitoring networks such as Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, ready to act quickly on cases of targeted attacks, supposedly offering psychological and even legal support to any Ubisoft employees. According to the dude, this is beyond anything they've had before, and it is actually very serious. This anonymous employee claims that, quote, lawyers are already prepared to file complaints in the event of confirmed harassment situations.
If this is you better lower your motherfucking tone when you talking to me.
And they have apparently even advised developers not to post on social media that they work at Ubisoft in order to avoid it. Which is funny because I don't even know why anyone would want to say that they work at Ubisoft to begin with. But anyway, besides this video, I'm working on a bigger one tackling the Yasuke situation. Basically, Yasuke has been in many cases the centerpiece of Assassin's Creed Shadows controversies. It's both an instigator and a scapegoat, so I'm taking my time with unwrapping that mess. But I thought I would make a shorter video on this matter with at least all of what we've heard so far. So let's talk about it. Usually, I'd have a lot to say in regards to this topic because I'd be hard-pressed to question what Ubisoft and the Canadian Power Ranger team means with, well, quote-unquote harassment, and I would be giving examples of two things: cases where normal criticism could be misconstrued to make it look like it, and situations of actually real cases of it, and I'd also be scrutinizing any language from Ubisoft to see if I could find any vague or manipulative nonsense that could spell trouble for us, and by trouble for us, let me specify, I mean situations where Ubisoft could purposefully misconstrue and attack us for fair, legal, and innocent criticism. And by fair, legal, and innocent criticism, I mean both criticism that is formally and eloquently levied, as well as harsh and even brutal criticism.
Fucking boring!
Hell, even mockery for that matter. After all, Ubisoft is a company, and no matter how harsh someone's words may be, if they are criticizing the company, or the company's terrible products, or their terrible conduct, both of which Ubisoft is ripe with, then we are fully within our right to do so. Even if they don't like the words that we use, or even taking into account that basic concept that a lot of people worked hard on these products. While I understand where this line of thought is coming from, it still does not constitute a personal attack or harassment. Oh, and another thing that I would most certainly be doing is breaking down the stupidity within the games industry of acting like an injured victim. This massively dishonest exaggeration and insinuation that toxicity and hostility run rampant in the industry because of us, the customers. Because this is a big thing that gaming journalists love to bring up every time that a story like this comes up. Be it a company like Ubisoft or Square Enix bringing up a new policy, or a random developer such as Mark Dara speaking out against criticism as it just happened a couple of weeks ago. Journalists love to bring up this delusional data from the Games Developers Conference stating that 91% of them claim that player harassment is a huge issue in the workplace, while leaving out what this Game Developer Conference really is and the type of unhinged fluorescent-haired activists who actually frequent it, and the kinds of lessons and presentations that they put up on it, and the insane level of hypocrisy that goes into the people that they invite to make presentations and speak at them. If all of this got detailed, then this number would immediately mean nothing. The reason why I won't go too much into it here is because I've already spoken about this at length very recently in both of these videos right here. One of them was when Square Enix updated their policies to include a bunch of extremely vague terms to target players who said things that they basically don't approve of, and banned them from both using the video games that they've already purchased from Square Enix products, as well as banning them from purchasing any future video games from them. And the other one was when Mark Darrah, an ex-BioWare employee who worked on Veilguard as a consultant, went off about how just because we buy video games does not give us the right to be cruel to game developers without actually specifying what cruelty is. Something that may sound very silly to some listening to this right now, but that, much like this situation here with Ubisoft, is incredibly important to be laid out clearly and succinctly, because leaving it open to interpretation means that it can be abused to silence people through intimidation via wrongful litigation, or in the case of Mark Darrah, it can be used to completely dismiss any valid criticism from people deeming it cruel. And that's just because he was giving an opinion in a video, but of course, if it's something that people can get away with, like, let me rephrase this. If people can move the goalpost just enough to where harsh or even crude yet acceptable criticism can be considered cruelty, then they can also start to deem that as harassment. And then if they do that, we are one step closer to changing the definition in the eyes of the law. Or, if not in the eyes of the law, then at least in the eyes of a dirty company using some wiggle room to justify sending out legal threats and taking down posts, comments, videos, and reviews that they deem as cruel enough to be considered harassment. So feel free to check out those videos if you want to dive deeper into the definitions and specifics, I guess. If I had made these videos months ago, I wouldn't mind going over the topic again here, but since they were fairly recent, especially the one from Mark Darrah that was just a couple of weeks ago, then it kinda just feels tacky to do so again. I'll be leaving a link to both of the videos in the top comment and in the description for anyone interested, and also a couple of other Assassin's Creed Shadows videos, like the one about the cultural problem with Ubisoft, and also the one making fun of the shills. Being specific about these things is very important. I know it sounds really silly to be like, well, define cruelty, or well, define harassment. Like, we all know what it is. Any reasonable person knows precisely what these words mean, and they have a pretty good idea of what type of behavior would qualify as such. Like, we know, we just don't know if they know, you know what I mean? The problem here isn't on our part. The parties who don't seem to understand what these words mean are the companies and these people who work at these companies under such crushingly delusional HR pacified environments that they don't even know what the fuck to do when someone sends an exclamation point in one of their emails. Seriously, this is an actual thing within Ubisoft according to an insider who spoke to Legendary Drops last year. An exclamation point, or the lack of visible emojis for levity in a company communication, can be a problem to some people in there. Now obviously this doesn't mean that it's the entire studio like that, of course not. I bet a lot of developers at Ubisoft are just normal people doing their jobs, waiting for the next paycheck, just like everybody else. And for these kinds of people, not mentioning that they work at Ubisoft or keeping from going full unhinged on social media is actually something that isn't just easy for them to do, but it comes naturally, because they're not the type of people who want to create problems or who are ideologically captured. In other words, they're not activists. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. However, there's always those types of developers, those types of people. You know precisely the ones that I'm talking about. I don't even need to say any words here. It's precisely the types that go out of their way to cause trouble for the very companies that they work for and the games that they're working on by taking to social media and making complete nuisances of themselves, attacking their fan bases, expressing desires to physically assault gamers, hell, in some cases even expressing desire to kill them, or a desire that we would just magically vanish from the earth, which is basically the exact same thing, just with more socially acceptable words. The games that they work on must express their views in some way, shape, or form, and if basically you are not okay with that, then that means that the game is not for you, and when the you in this situation is the majority of the gaming population, obviously this causes problems for the company. So that little clause there that states that Ubisoft is urging their developers to not post on social media isn't just a protection for themselves as individuals on the internet, but also for the company as well. Nothing turns away potential customers even more than a developer or a director or a community manager spouting off hostile bullshit online. So it's normal that Ubisoft is trying to keep this to a minimum, and it's honestly also the professional thing to do. In a normal world, this wouldn't even be an issue, like this wouldn't even be something that a company has to say or a rule that they would have to enforce, because usually companies would not be hiring activists and trying to put in contentious, divisive, contemporary political matters into their video games. But you know, it is what it is. It's the cross that we have to bear. So these types of people have incredibly loose and manipulative grasps of language and words. They quite literally make up terms for whatever they need that doesn't exist yet, or they make up bullshit to fit into terms that already do. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's no trust in this at all. I don't trust Ubisoft and their Canadian Power Ranger collaborators to be actually good faith and not abuse their power. And I don't trust activists to work with existing definitions of these words. I'd love to be proven wrong, of course. I would love nothing more than for that to happen, to be able to criticize this game freely and to see others online be able to do so as well without being targeted or silenced in some way, shape or form by people twisting and mangling these definitions to mean whatever it is that they need them to mean in order to take the actions that they want to take. But I don't trust them for this. I don't trust them for shit, honestly. In fact, just a few days ago, Ubisoft copyright struck Smash JT for running a news story about some cancelled game of theirs, Project U, presumably with footage that was leaked to him or that he found. I didn't actually watch the video. I saw the thumbnail, I actually got a notification for it on my phone, but I was busy at the time, and then when I finally was going to catch up with the news, I saw the video was gone and he had a new one up saying that Ubisoft struck his channel. I thought that this was undoubtedly an unnecessary misuse of the YouTube copyright system when a simple email would have sufficed. Smash has already been more than open and good faith with them. Recently there was even this whole fiasco with McDizzle Gaming, a YouTuber who impersonated a Ubisoft employee to send Smash a fake leak for him to report of an upcoming delay for Shadows. Ubisoft contacted both him and McDizzle because A, the delay news was fake, of course McDizzle made it up, and B, it involved information about this employee which was present in the video. Smash complied with their request without any fuss. So yeah, a simple email requesting the takedown of that video would have sufficed. I doubt that Smash would have played tough guy with him. Instead, they take overtly hostile action on his channel, striking it. They didn't even just DMCA claim the video for featuring that leaked footage, they went for the big guns. And sometimes I make videos and I see some comments that are negative on Smash AT, and I understand that some people don't like him, but the thing is that doesn't even matter. Even if you don't like him, it does not matter. This could happen to your favorite YouTuber as well. This was literally this could happen to me. I could have found some footage of this cancelled video game from Ubisoft and put it up on my channel and talked about it. This is a leak from Ubisoft. Ubisoft fucked up, the footage is out there, and people are just taking whatever is out there. You didn't hack it. Fucking Smash AT isn't sitting at home in a basement with supercomputers, trying to hack into the mainframe. He just took the footage and he put it up, and he talked about it. What Ubisoft did here was despicable. It was a despicable use of power, because of course they got their lawyers, they got their millions, they don't give a shit about fair use, they just wave their big corporate dick around and hope that things go for the best. But I'm telling you right now, if this goes through and they start claiming all sorts of videos, deleting all sorts of comments, silencing all sorts of people because of criticism, they're going to be cooking up a big class action for themselves, and at that point I'm not so sure that things are going to be going as well. But anyway, let's move on. Ubisoft is at an all-time low when it comes to trust and goodwill, and this goes across the entire board. When it comes to video games, anything that they announce is met with doubt because their consistency in releasing broken, incomplete, or just weak, mediocre games is, it's consistent. When it comes to their business side of things, they haven't been trusted in a long time already, as their descent into predatory monetization in their games continues to this day. And when it comes to relations with their players, it's also at an all-time low, as they disregard criticism as racism or misogyny, depending on the color or the dangly bits of the characters that their games are featuring. Furthermore, we also have the comment last year in regards to us having to get accustomed to not owning their games as they push for a subscription-based future, something we are adamantly against. Subscription services are fine as an option, but Ubisoft's push to take away the concept of ownership from us has been noted, and we haven't forgotten. So, as a company that cannot be trusted, diving headfirst into ideologies that like to manipulate narratives by misusing language and quite literally making shit up, I do not trust them to know what words such as cruelty and harassment actually mean. I do not trust them to be genuine with their definitions of these words, and I don't trust them to act in good faith going forward. So yeah, as silly as it sounds, specificity in regards to these words, and especially what they consider these words to mean, is imperative. But I mean, come on, who are we really kidding here? We're not really going to get it. There's nothing really compelling them to give it up, and they aren't really concerned with what we think either. Which is interesting because supposedly Assassin's Creed Shadows really, and I mean really, has to sell. Ubisoft is in a terrible position right now. They have to make money to offset a bunch of consecutive losses and a consistent decline over the past few years. This isn't news to anyone who is playing video games. Like, even if you are a casual enjoyer of games like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, for example, which I'm sure there's many, it's not really anything too shocking to admit to oneself that these games are sloppy. They are games that you play in the middle of other games, stuff that you play while doing other stuff, or more specifically while listening or watching to something on YouTube. And sometimes they are defended as such, like people say, you know, it's just a fun game, it doesn't have to be more than that, not every game has to be Red Dead Redemption 2. And I understand that, and I agree, not every game has to be Red Dead Redemption 2, but we are at a point where Assassin's Creed and Far Cry are no longer Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. Their identities have fallen down such a fucking deep hole that they are just... they're nothing, and I think that they deserve to be more, because once upon a time we played Far Cry because we were really interested in that dynamic between survival and arcade shooting, in these exotic tropical islands with mysteries, and of course, a damn good villain performance. In Assassin's Creed I had a bunch of great storytelling, they had good characters, they had that whole plot line with the ancient civilization, they had great tense moments between certain characters that were even historical, there was a certain mystique to the Assassin's Creed, you know, the actual group of the Assassin's Creed, and the gameplay was more than the baseline vapid shit that it is now. But Ubisoft has consistently denigrated these franchises so much that people don't even notice or they don't even care anymore. It's kind of like this mediocrity is an established thing now. And then they got the hype tubers making videos hyping them up for no fucking reason whatsoever. Hey guys, check it out, a brand new video, we've got a new armor set, you can pick it up very early in the video game, all you have to do is you run back to the mountain, go up the wall, down the wall, go up, click this button, check underneath, and bingo bango bongo, here you go, legendary armor, it glows in the dark, it is amazing. But yeah, anyway, I really don't understand how this is the way that they prepare for one of the most important launches of their career, if not the most important. It's not even just that this kind of action reinforces every bad behavior and every reason to not only just be suspicious of Ubisoft as a company, but also straight up disgusted and disappointed. But it's also a major red flag for the game itself. It kinda shows that they have no confidence in the game that they are making, which is something that already had its fair share of signs so far because of the delay and all of the idiotic mistakes and blunders with cultural and historical insensitivity and inconsistencies. But now with this, it's like they're looking at their game, they're looking at its quality, at its story, and at God only knows what decisions they have made in terms of historical narrative, diversity, inclusion, and etc. And they're just going, oh fuck, guys, we fucked up, alright? We fucked up. We gotta get you guys out of the internet right now. Oh, but boss, qu'est-ce qui se passe? What is going on? There's no time for questions, Pierre. We gotta go, man. We gotta go now. We gotta get you all out of the internet right now. We gotta get you all out of social media. Shit's about to go down. It's going to get crazy, son. We gotta go. Joanne, get me Canada on the phone right now. We're gonna need some backup. Get me the Canadian Power Rangers. This is really just a bad look on them as a company and on their game, but then again, so have been several decisions that they've made so far, so honestly, you know, it's just par for the course at this point. I'm so desensitized when it comes to Ubisoft, it's nuts. At the end of the day, setting up protections for your employees is not a bad thing at all. Honestly, if this was a trustworthy company and we weren't going through the shit that we're going through in the industry right now, I wouldn't even care that much seeing this. In fact, I would see it as a win, if anything at all. Because again, actual harassment is a bad thing. It's an unjustifiable thing. It's an ugly thing and people shouldn't do it. Game developers, actors, etc. should be able to tend to their jobs safely and still have the ability to exist normally on social media spaces like everyone else without being targeted as an employee of a studio XYZ and sent threats or getting doxxed or any other unhinged behavior. And I wouldn't even just see it as a win when it comes to us, like when it comes to protecting employees in this industry. It's actually crazy to look towards the gamers as some sort of threat to them when Ubisoft has a history of serious harassment in their offices, with 3 of their higher-ups being investigated. And we all know about all of the problems within Blizzard as well, for example. These stories aren't exactly hidden away. Thankfully, they are brought forward to the public. And when I had Twitter and I used to use it, I actually used to spam Ubisoft's little tweets with, "Hey, what about the harassment, you fucking pieces of..." You know what I mean? Like, I used to do this very often, anytime that they announced a new game or whatever. Then eventually I just stopped because nothing was seemingly happening. You know, these processes, they obviously take a long time. You can't expect them to go through the justice system so quickly. But it stung to see the major higher-up, Yves Guillemot, to still maintain his position in the studio for all of these years. He was not only responsible for dunking the quality of all of these games, but all of these harassment cases also happened under his eye. He was supposed to take care of his employees and he did not. And so nowadays it's kind of laughable to see these companies coming up with these supposed harassment policies, right? And blasting them on social media, and then of course the game journalists, they take these stories, they write these articles about it, and they go on about how toxic the industry is because of the gamers and da-da-da-da-da. But in reality, the real threats, like the actual threats that employees have actually been under, you know, the real danger, has always come from the inside, except of course the very rare instances where it actually happened in real life and there were actually bomb threats and threats of violence happening at an event. Like, this stuff exists, it is real, absolutely, nobody is saying that it isn't, but these are rare, which is a very good thing, and these are actual physical threats. They have nothing to do with what they call online harassment campaigns. It's just, you know, the sad reality of crazy people existing in the world. And basically taking these situations where some guy online is going, "Hey, your game is a piece of shit," and calling it harassment is a fucking joke to the actual victims of harassment within these studios. But anyway, sorry for my little rant here, let's get back to the main topic. In a normal world that hasn't been completely corrupted and turned upside down, where words no longer mean the things that they actually mean, where terms that once described a very specific thing no longer describe that thing and have been usurped by activists to literally fuck with as they please, to twist and mangle to suit their purposes with no regard whatsoever of the consequences that would bring, this wouldn't even be up to debate. This would be a Tuesday morning. What's that, honey? More protections for game developers? Well, that sounds fine to me. Anyway, let's get back to the Elder Scrolls 6, which released last month and is actually amazing. But sadly, we don't live in that world. We live in one where very important words, harsh words, even with very specific and strong meanings, have been completely diminished. They've been worn out and no longer bear any impact, and in some cases no meaning whatsoever. Just think about words like grifter or bigot or even racist or fascist. None of these words mean a goddamn thing anymore because morons have misused them for years now, trying to emotionally manipulate people and companies to doing whatever they want. So now all of those words may very well just describe a guy who just merely posted a dank meme on the internet or made a YouTube video criticizing the latest shitty Disney Star Wars production, or perhaps a YouTube video criticizing the latest Ubisoft video game. And so because of this, we, and by we I mean all of us as normal people in this world, can't even come together and stand against something that is proclaimed to be harassment, because for all we know, all that amounts to is a negative review review that doesn't pull any punches, a review or analysis or commentary video, whatever, that while not personally attacking, doxing or harming anyone at all in any way whatsoever, may very well be harsh and visceral, not softening any blows and making it very clear to point out mediocrity, shitty writing, dumb AI, and fucking incomprehensive levels of incompetence in game design. These are just examples of what can be said of Star Wars Outlaws, for example. I understand that these words can cut, but there is still nothing inherently wrong with them, nothing that should forbid them from being spoken. And anyway, all of this is because trust and goodwill have been completely eroded, and while I am all for hoping and trying for a better future, where some of this trust and goodwill is rebuilt, not necessarily with Ubisoft, but with just people on the quote-unquote the other side, I am still not going to lower my guard, nor am I going to encourage others to be tolerant and patient and lower their guards too, when we still have people in companies like Ubisoft leading the charge on being completely hostile to us and to our industry. I am all for mending this divide between people, especially within the gaming space. Gaming should be about bringing people together, not driving them apart. But while there are still hostile forces gripping this industry from the inside, I'm not going to be giving anyone an inch so they can take a mile. And so with that said, I am now closing this video with a couple of announcements, but bear with me here because I'm really bad at keeping up to schedule, so here's the deal. In celebration with Ubisoft wanting to bone people for criticizing their games and going as far as to have a team on the ready 24/7 386, I am announcing 3 videos breaking down 3 of their games. Number 1, Assassin's Creed Shadows, of course. Number 2, Star Wars Outlaw, something that I have already have an extensive list of notes taken after playing it over the past 3 to 4 months, with a lot of breaks in between, trust me, a lot of breaks for that one. And number 3, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which I also have quite a few hours on already since last year, but I dropped. These games, minus Shadows of course, are games that I've played quite a bit already, but never worked on any videos for because they're just so vapid, so bad, so passionless, and so wide, you know, there's so much content in them that I was just never in the mood for completing them and going in depth, so instead I just focused on making other videos. I will endeavor to be firm but fair in these breakdowns, of course, but I will not be going for completion, as that is just insane. Ubisoft should actually be thankful that I'm not going for completion, because the more one plays of these games, like in an attempt to complete them, the worse the experience is and the angrier one gets. However, despite the firmness and the fairness, I will not forget Ubisoft's choice to antagonize us and be hostile, so I'm not really going to be holding back either. Believe it or not, I actually held back a lot when I made my videos on Veilguard and Avowed. Often I would say to myself that I'm being needlessly prickly, and that it also goes against my usual stance of wanting to at least be welcoming to people of different opinions, instead of in a fully contrarian position, or whatever the proper expression is here. Basically, in other words, not everyone has played all the video games that other people have played. Not everyone has the same experience in video games. Not everyone has played the same games and has frames of reference to past games that were better or worse, you know, that kind of thing. So when you come across as too hostile to a game that could be reasonably good enough for some people, those people tend to think that you are being too needlessly harsh, and they click off before you're even able to get to the point of the video where you're explaining why you feel that way. And this is something that commonly happens with Ubisoft games, because like I said earlier in the video, a lot of people play these having fully accepted the mediocrity and just wanting to have blind fun. Some of them tend to have that position of like, what do you expect? It's Ubisoft, it's okay, you know, it's like the fast food of gaming, which is a type of bias. It's not a bias in the classical sense where you want to defend the game and say that it's the most amazing thing ever, but it is a bias that keeps you from judging the game objectively. My plan is to hold them to the standard that they should be held in these videos. Take away all of the bias and just consider that they are Ubisoft, they are a major company with a lot of money and a lot of balls too. If they have the money and the balls to have a team of lawyers at the ready scouting for shit online to take action on, then they should also have the money and balls to make games that exceed our expectations, instead of games that kind of just cement that mediocrity. So that ought to be fun. The catch, however, for you guys is that I am terrible at scheduling things, so I can't promise that these videos are going going to be coming out like consistently solid releases one after another, like your favorite YouTubers or reviewers or whatever would very likely be able to do. All that I can say is that I will be getting onto them as conveniently as I can. With that said, I am done here. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. And yeah, that's about it. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care of yourselves.